be careful what you watch when you're in a season of transition.
There's a bit of shame attached to naming your dysfunctions.
Where am I depositing my attention? What am I giving my energy and my time and my consumption to? Because it will bear fruit in my life.
There is nothing embarrassing about being at foundational level. Hello and welcome to the To My Sisters podcast. I'm Renee.
And I'm Courtney, and we are your online sisters and hosts of the To My Sisters podcast.
Now we are all about promoting the wellness, growth and development of a community of sisters across the world.
And in today's conversation, we are going to be talking about how to embrace your season. We are going to be sharing lessons and tips on how to overcome comparison, fear of the future, and any insecurity you may be feeling at this stage of your life. Over here at the Sisterhood, where we are full of ambition, there can often be a lot of doubt about the future and about where we're at in life, whether we're far enough, whether we're where we're meant to be. And we wanted to come and just encourage you guys, as well as leave you with some practical tips and wisdom to help you navigate any thoughts that you may be having in your heart and in your mind during this stage of your glowing and growing journey. So hang in tight. It's going to be a really, really good one.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Well, before we actually get into it, you already know the drill. Let's keep it brief, but are there any housekeeping announcements?
At this point, just a reminder to purchase a copy of the To My Sisters book.
Yes.
Occasionally, we remember that we are in fact authors.
Indeed.
Yeah. And on your glowing and growing journey, we are advocates of making sure that you do this journey with another person.
Absolutely.
And how better to do that than actually buying the lifelong guide to building those friendships. So please, first of all, thank you to everybody that has purchased a copy of the book. We have loved seeing the reviews. And if you have read it and really enjoyed it, please continue to leave a review over on Amazon, Waterstones, Good Books, wherever you feel the most comfortable to leave a review. It really, really helps us and actually boosts on the algorithm.
It does.
Boosts on the SEO.
It helps your girls out.
Just helping the girlies out just a little bit. So please leave a review. If you haven't already purchased the book, we would highly recommend. We have heard great things about it, as aforementioned. And please also purchase a book for a friend. This is one of those books that it's not just about personal development. We have a saying, it's not, self-development, it's us development. So please make sure that you either recommend the book to a friend or even go out of your way, and that's your good deed for the week. Buy the book for a friend. We would love it.
Absolutely amazing. Well, there is a sister in need,
as per usual,
someone who needs some help and some advice. So sisters, let's lock in. It's a ding dilemma. Let's go. Hi Renee and Courtney.
Hi.
I hope you beautiful ladies are having a wonderful day.
So platonic.
Thank you, my lovely.
That's so kind.
Congratulations on being nominated to the top 25 Black entrepreneurs to watch list. Thank you so much.
Thanks, babes.
I've learned so much about friendships, Christianity and womanhood through your podcast. It's an honor. I'm 35 plus, a Black woman living in Ireland. I've been single for about 2.5 years. In this time, I had to face the truth of my motives for desiring marriage and romance. I had deep insecurities and wished to be married for validation and approval. That's great self-awareness. I made a lot of mistakes and unwise choices just to get and keep a man. Through a lot of prayers and tears, God brought me back to the woman I was before the craziness. I can barely recognize the desperate and fearful woman I was a few years ago. I'm at peace, joyous, and love the life I now have. The desire I had to be married dissipated as I returned to my full self. I am fulfilled in singleness and know this is the life God has for me. However, when I explain this to some of my family or friends, they don't believe I'm truly happy. They dismiss me by saying, when the right man comes along, you'll change your mind. Accuse me of hating men. Use dying alone in an attempt to scare me, or blame generational curses for the reason why I'm single.
Oh Lord.
I don't have any more words left to help them understand. I want to share this joy with them, but it's very hard and I don't want to start arguments either. I'll be grateful for any advice or suggestions you can give me. Much love, your sis in Ireland.
Big up our sisters in Ireland. We've got a lot of love
y'all.
for you guys. A lot of love for you guys. And God willing, we'll find ourselves in Ireland at some point. First of all, sis, this is such a beautiful journey that you have been on. And God bless you and well done. the level of self-awareness, the level of transformation, do you know what I mean? It's not easy to get to a place where you feel very comfortable in yourself, not even in your season of singleness, as is, you know, the popular adage that we use when we are not with someone, but you actually feeling confident enough in yourself at your age and stage is such a beautiful thing. And just God bless you and continue to bless you and keep you. It's really given Apostle Paul, and I love that for you, babes. You know, Apostle Paul said, I wish that the people then were like me, but if you can't be like me, then go find somebody. You know what I'm saying? So kudos to you to getting to that place in your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and also the confidence in God's calling for you.
Yeah.
I think this one is a tough one because of the way that romantic relationships have been so enshrined in society. One of the things that we are constantly going to be battling with is validation and seeing romantic relationships as validations, particularly for women. So I'm not surprised that you are going through that, Sha, and it's probably something that you are not only going through, but a lot of other sisters are currently going through. Yeah. I think, first of all, continuing to shine and radiate your confidence when you are having those interactions with your family members. I think it can be very, very easy for the enemy to use some of those interpersonal interactions as a means to get a foothold into your life and start spreading that doubt, or start using what is ostensibly projections from your family members to make you feel like there's something wrong with you, or make you feel like there's some kind of inadequacy or incompleteness because you don't have a romantic partner. Yeah. And I think it is really about standing strong in your position, continuing to do the work that you're doing internally, because honestly, the times of testings are the times where we really can demonstrate the work that God has been doing on the inside of us. So I think it's less so about fighting your family members and more so about demonstrating that the joy of the Lord actually resides on the inside of you. Yeah. And I think depending on your capacity or how you feel led, using these like interactions as opportunities for discussion, right? These things and these changes are not going to happen overnight in terms of your family coming to grips with the fact that you may be, you know, single, or you may not be with someone for a considerable amount of time. Yeah. But using this as an opportunity to actually bring people closer to you, but ultimately closer to God, right? And I'm not saying that you have to prove yourself per se, but using this as an opportunity to share what God has actually done for you in your life can be so fulfilling for both you, but then also starts that work that probably needs to be done within your family context of understanding that God's purposes can sometimes be difficult for individuals to grasp, but also equally God's purposes are far above and beyond what we can conceive of, especially for women. And it's not necessarily so tied to the way we've been socialized or cultural expectations and norms around marriage and romantic relationships and whatnot. I think also continuing to really invest in yourself and investing in your relationship with God, it's not easy, right? It's not easy. And the fact that you've been able to go on this journey and get to this place where you can confidently say, these were some of my vices, or these were the areas that I was really struggling with when it came to romantic relationships, making sure that you're continuing to do the work, that the work actually continues is super, super important. Because not to say that that you are becoming complacent, but we can so easily become complacent when we feel like we've gotten to a stage where we have overcome. But really continuing to do that work of investing in yourself, finding joy in the other relationships that you have as well, whether it be with your family members or also with your friends as well. Just really continuing to find joy in those interactions and continuing to share the love of God with these people. And also it sounds like you're doing this really great work by yourself, but really connecting with community as well. I'm sure that there are a whole bunch of folks, well, fingers crossed, I know Ireland, you don't necessarily have to connect with other Black women, but in terms of diversifying your community, if you don't already have friends that are either in a similar kind of stage as you, really thinking about what are the communities that I can tap into that bring me joy as well, just so that you don't feel like every single time that you interact with your family, the main focus is always going to be on, where's your man? You know what I'm saying? Like having those third spaces, having those communities that you can really tap into and kind of have joy from those interactions too, on balance, can really, really add a whole bunch of fulfillment in your life. But in conclusion, sis, first of all, super, super proud of you. Like you've really been doing the work, and it's beautiful to see that you've been able to allow God to work in you in this way, to be able to ascend from that place of really idolizing romantic relationships. And as tough as it is, obviously we can't be responsible for the way that our family members interact or the way that they may perceive certain things. But I think using this as an opportunity to continue the work on yourself, but also an opportunity in those interactions to really share the love of God and be able to use those interactions as an opportunity to start doing the work with them, and not shying away from continuing to, you know, say, hey, I'm actually really, really happy and this is what, you know, God has done in my life. And then lastly, just enjoying those third spaces where you're actually connecting with like-minded people that are like you, or even unlike you, but just having those other communities and other people around you, be above and beyond your family, that can bring you joy in those interactions as well. So that is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I actually think that's a really good kind of practical guide to dealing with that. And I think I love that you started with validation, because I think we don't just look for validation in our partner. I think we also look for validation in the people around us, as to what they think about the season that we're in. And everyone's reaction is very different. Everyone doesn't go on that same journey. And even if they do, they don't arrive at the same place of, you know, having the same feelings towards singleness or the same understanding of what our motives should be when it comes to desiring a life partner or marriage. And so I would definitely say, don't resent your family for having this way of thinking, because a lot of these things are very ingrained, not just in us, but in our families, in our culture. And I get it. I get where it's coming from. However, don't let that fear impress on you, because you've done so much work to come out of that place. I would say it's worth having a discussion with them, as you said, using this as a talking point, but having a discussion with them about like whether you are actually open to marriage, and they're misunderstanding your contentment with this season as you never being open to marriage, because that could be what's also prompting their not fear, but their worry, about this situation. It's very different to say you never want to be married. And that is different to saying I'm content with my single season. And it could be there's a miscommunication there. And you don't have to be fully set on what it is you're trying to do. It could be that you're like, I don't know, I'm open to getting married, but I don't know if I'm going to force getting married or if I have a deadline for marriage. That may be worth having a conversation with them as well. That like, you guys are approaching this like I'm saying I never want to be married, but that door is not closed for me. I'm just not obsessed with the idea of getting married, and I'm not as invested in this idea that marriage will save me or marriage will complete all of my problems. And so I think there could also be an opportunity to delve into the nuances of the places where you're at mentally and what your view of marriage currently is in your life. But I think it's such a beautiful journey to go on, and a lot of women really struggle, especially in their 30s, 40s, to kind of get to that place of everyone has social expectations, but what are my actual desires? And I think it's so commendable and applaudable that you have come to that place of like, I'm single at the moment and I'm learning to be happy with it. Like, it's not even a thing of I've never wanted it. And I think it's a very big hurdle to overcome, desiring something so much and then getting to this place of contentment. So kudos to you for actually doing that work. And yeah, I don't think you should let your family kind of hold you back. At the end of the day, if you're happy where you are and you know what your desires and your prayers are for your future and what you've committed into the Lord's hands, I think it's good to be patient, and it's good to just trust him with the journey that you're on and whatever your future may be. And don't let anyone's expectations of you derail you. If you feel like conversations are getting toxic or they're, you know, very overbearing, your family and your friends are very overbearing on you with their opinions, feel free to disengage as well. And like Renee said, find new community, find new people to have conversations with, and just lay boundaries around that conversation. But I also think there's space for vulnerability there, telling people this is how these repeated conversations are actually making me feel. Like it feels like you guys are adding a layer of pressure onto me, or you guys are misunderstanding me, or it feels as though, you know, you guys are trying to drag me to a place I've really tried hard to come out of. And I think being honest with your friends and family and the people who actually love you about how they're making you feel also helps them to kind of reassess their behavior as well, because it may be coming from a great place, but they just don't know how it's being interpreted by you as well. So I think there's opportunity to also just be honest with them that when you guys keep bringing this to me, it makes me feel like there's something wrong with me, or it makes me feel like I can't come to you with this new journey that I'm on. And I do want you guys to be involved. I love you guys, but you're making it incredibly hard. And so I think that's also a conversation worth having as well, if you feel as though they keep badgering you with something. So yeah, sis, lay your boundaries and stick by the journey that you are on, because it sounds like a really beautiful one. And I think any journey that allows you to be closer to God and discover more of who you are, independent of anyone or anything else, is one that should be protected and really cherished. So kudos to you.
Smashed
we actually pray that this continues, and that whatever the future may hold, whether it's marriage or still thriving in singleness, you will continue to be joyful and you'll continue to be at peace. So yes, sisters, tell us what you think about this dilemma. Do you have thoughts on it? Are you currently going through it? Do you feel like sis needs to change her mind and jump on some prayer calls and be doing, writing her manifestations? I will find my man soon.
I'm screaming.
Chime in the comments on YouTube and in the comments on Spotify. We want to know your thoughts as well. And if you ever want to send us a dilemma, you already know the deal. You can actually send them to us via email at dilemmas@twomysisters.com. We'll read them. You might get shout out on the pod.
There you go. And we'd appreciate it if you could keep it as short as possible. We know that it's hard, but it makes it hard for us when you send us paragraphs.
For real.
Girl, we love you.
For real. So into today's episode. Okay, this is coming and is inspired by the conversation we had with Shani last week. Shout out to all of you who have watched that episode. If you haven't, go and watch our episode For Such a Time as This, featuring Shani Akila, one of the most beautiful people.
Truly, like inside and out, man. It's
for real. She is so beautiful and she's written an amazing interconnected story. Well, interconnected collection of short stories. There we go. About life post-pandemic, dating, friendship, work, career, being Black, being in the UK, as depressing as it can be sometimes.
Yeah, man, extremely.
And as we said, the title of the book is For Such a Time as This. And something that was highlighted through that conversation is the importance of embracing seasons within your own life, as well as how seasons are really teased out in the book as well. And I thought it would be a great conversation to have with the sisters around how do you actually go about embracing the season of your life that you are in. Not every season is thriving and beautiful. Some seasons require you to go really deep and do that deep inner work of like cultivating your heart and your mind to really look at what's going on around you positively, even when it may not be in alignment with what you want for your life in this present time. And I think as we get, into the middle of the year, as we even start heading towards the end of the year, people start to think a lot more about, okay, what am I actually doing with my life? And I think it's also influenced by the stage of life that you're in.
Right.
If you this is like a transition period for a lot of people, going from one academic year into the next. Some of you may be pivoting in terms of your career, or you may be just in different stages of life. And I think in times of transition as well, in times where you can feel like, I need to prepare myself for something, or I'm longing for something, it can be so easy to get bogged down with comparison, your insecurities, but mostly fear of the future. And I thought we could give some really practical things that we have learned through life, through our own journeys, as well as be vulnerable and transparent about the challenges we may face with embracing our own seasons with the sisters, so that we can all get encouraged and inspired together, because that's what this podcast and this sisterhood is all about.
All of that.
Yeah. If you kick us off with a point that you feel like could help the sisters out,
what could help the sisters? Ooh. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is embracing that there will be some things that will take longer than you anticipated.
That's good.
And as much as you can have your plans, January 1st, you're like, by the end of the year, I'm going to have achieved X, Y, Z. Or by 6 months into the year, I should be this far into my journey around self-awareness or becoming a better version of me. And you get to July, you're like, bruh, not only am I not as far as I thought I was, but I might actually be worse in some cases. I think embracing the fact that sometimes transformations and transitions will take longer than you anticipated. And that doesn't mean that you have failed. It just means that you have to extend your timelines, and being humble enough to do that, and not thinking that it's time for you to give up because you haven't made progress. Being somebody that is ambitious, and I think we are in a community of sisters that are also extremely ambitious, full of boss babes, full of people that really want to, move the dial on stuff. I think it really is embracing that sometimes it's enough to have moved the needle. You don't have to move the dial like 10 steps ahead. As long as you're making meaningful progress, at least in the right direction, then you're making progress. And don't despise yourself because the progress isn't as significant as you wanted it to be. Whether it is financial progress, whether it is progress in your relationships, or whether it is progress in certain areas of your life, it can be really disheartening and disillusioning if not only are you thinking about like, oh, I haven't made progress in comparison to my age mates or the people around me, but I actually haven't made progress in comparison to where I was at the beginning of the year. So I think embracing that sometimes change and transition will take longer than you anticipated. It's not a waste of your time at all. And in fact, sometimes the biggest and best transformations require that time, right? Like, there's something beautiful about being able to take your time to really dig deep.
Yeah.
There's something just so, especially in a life that is often so fast paced and there's so much that's expected from us to be able to provide and produce. It is necessary for you to actually have the amount of time that is necessary to build solid roots. And that root building, that foundation building, that's often when you're making a building or whenever you're building some kind of structure, it's the foundation that takes the longest amount of time. And I think sometimes we can be quick, and I can hold my hands up and say, I have sometimes been super quick thinking that my foundation is done.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next step. Self-awareness. I'm so self-aware, and it's like, whoa, actually, Renee, you are not as self-aware as you thought you were because it took only one flare up or one situation or one issue to like knock you down. So I think recognizing that true change and transformation will take time, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to have the time to spend time on yourself, right? And I think for me personally, sometimes I have been hard on myself in that it has taken me a longer amount of time to fix myself or at least go on that journey of healing, right? I think sometimes we can romanticize the journey of healing and think that it's something that should happen very quickly, or you know, you're grown, you should be able to overcome this like that. Or you're grown, you should be able to move from here to here in like 6 months. And you get to the end of the 6 months, you're like, bro, let's start again. Or at least let's continue the journey, change track, or let's continue the journey and extend the timelines. So I think being patient with myself, and by extension, sisters, being patient with yourself and allowing yourself the true time that you need to build those roots, to build that structure, to build that foundation. There is nothing embarrassing about being at foundational level. Yeah. And as somebody that has been a high achiever pretty much all my life, you know, you'll be, oh, I don't ever want to be in set 1. I don't ever want to be in set 2. I want to be in set 4. Like I want to be at top set all the time. But in order for you to get to top set and also maintain being at top set, you have to spend some time at the foundation. Yeah. Like I think of the tests that we used to do back in the day in like GCSE or A level, and there's a certain percentage of the questions that you'll be answered that are on foundation, and there's a certain percentage of the questions that are asked that are geared towards like students that want to be A-star students. It's funny because from my recollection, the majority of the questions are foundation questions, and there's only a couple of questions towards the end that are for the A-star students or the students that are really striving to do like really, really well. But the majority of points actually comes from you doing the foundational stuff well. So I think taking that approach, spending time that is necessary and required, making sure that your foundation is solid and affording yourself enough time, extending timelines if you need to, so that at the end of the day, you're actually prepared for the majority of the test, which will often be at the foundational level. So I think for me, practically spending more time on the foundational stuff. So like your character, for example, that work is going to be ongoing work. Listen, as much as I would love to say, oh, you know, I'm a fantastic person and I'm great and amazing and stuff, which I don't deny. I also have weaknesses, real weaknesses that I have to fight with every single day. And in order to make significant progress, it requires me to spend time on these things. Like serious traumas or serious character flaws were not built in a day. Yeah. They were accumulated over years. So it makes sense that for me to be able to undo that work, or at least, you know, trigger new neuro pathways that enable me to be a better person, it's going to take me time. So my encouragement, practical advice, sisters, it's actually okay to take your time. Take your time building your foundations. Take your time establishing those roots. Take your time unlearning, but also establishing new stuff. And if it's taken you longer than you anticipated at this point in the year, don't feel disheartened, because the time that it took you to become this kind of person that you didn't want to be, sometimes you need an equal amount of time to really spend becoming the woman that you want to be.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that came
off
the top of my head.
I think it's so true. Like, everyone's season doesn't last the same length of time.
Right.
And I think we need to be okay with embracing that difference, that actually your season of X, your season of building, your season of laying the foundation may actually be longer than other people's. And I think one of the things I always say kind of messes up our the way we think about seasons is the education system.
Yeah.
Because we are all at the same stage and pass through the same stages of life at the same amount of time, at the same time, a lot of us think that life post education, post university, post, college, whatever, passes the same way, when actually no, it doesn't. Like, some of y'all are gonna be doing GCSEs for 6 years.
Fam.
Some of you will do it in 6 months, and that's actually okay. I think it's looking at the fact that life doesn't have a standardized timeline, and it's easy to fall into that trap. By now I should be doing this because everyone else is moving at this speed.
Right.
But let's scrap that. It's not a universal timeline. And that's
Really
okay.
isn't.
It's actually okay to be building slow. I really like that.
Child.
My one after that is come back to reality. I think especially, come back to reality. I think as we are ambitious people, it's easy to get used to that exceptionalism, right? Like you said, like being a consistent high achiever, which I completely relate to. It's like you're used to doing the exceptional. And sometimes when you're hit with a hurdle in life, you can become extremely hypercritical and hard on yourself, because it feels like this is not normal for me, right? Like, I know myself, I know the level I perform at, I know that every time I try something, I overachieve, I exceed in my results. And so to now be coming up short, or to feel as though I'm actually just hitting average, feels like there must be something wrong. Like, run some diagnostics, there's a problem in the system. When actually, when you come back to reality and you think about yourself in the wider landscape, you realize you're still doing incredibly well, or this is normal for your age, this is normal for your stage, this is normal for your role, this is normal for your season. And I think this really proves itself when it comes to money and navigating money in your 20s. A lot of like statistics out there, depending on where you are from, will tell you like average number of savings people have in their accounts, average salary that people are making in your nation. And when you look at those numbers, a lot of what you're probably beating yourself up over isn't actually that deep, because you're probably where the national average is, or stuff for a lot of us actually doing better than it. And I think embracing that you're doing okay comes when you contextualize things. And in order to have the right context, you need to come back to reality. A lot of us exist in echo chambers on the internet. You're listening to your favorite podcast. You're around people who are similar to you, who may be similarly high flyers, or maybe even underachievers, whatever it is. I think it's important to be probed by the reality of life around you. And it's not just this little section of life and people and society you found yourself in. There's actually a bigger picture and a bigger system you're living within, which means you can place yourself accordingly. And I think we put a lot of undue pressure on ourselves because we aren't aware of what's actually happening in reality. In reality, the majority of people don't even have £1,000 in their savings. In reality, the average salary of people between the age of 25 to 35 is £35,000 in the UK. That's the national average. And that's not to say we should all aspire to that level. That's to say, this pressure you're putting on yourself because you're not earning 6 figures, is it undue pressure? Like, is it actually kind of unrealistic? Because the majority of people are not either. And so kind of allowing yourself to take a step back. And I think this even contextualizes the hardness of your goals, right? Saying that you want to do something and achieve something is one thing. Realizing the magnitude of what you're trying to achieve is actually another. And the magnitude is determined by the context, right? in comparison to what everyone else is doing, in comparison to what is averagely possible, what I'm trying to do is actually really, really ambitious, which means that I understand that what I'm trying to do is actually really, really hard, right? And we're a community that loves to do hard things, but I think sometimes we do not give ourselves the credit for the fact that what we're doing is actually hard.
Yeah.
Like it's not everyone does this, it should be easy, because that's when the frustration comes. When you start to think everyone achieves this, you're thinking, damn, am I dumb? Like, am I lagging behind? And it's like, no, you're not. What you're doing, or what you're trying to do actually, is incredibly hard. Like, the resistance is not because there's something wrong with you. There's not a problem with the system. You're trying to upgrade maybe too fast, right? You're trying to force in a system upgrade too quickly, too fast, when you haven't got the hardware or the software to be able to manage that. And I think it's contextualization that actually helps us to know whether we're being hard enough on ourselves or too hard on ourselves. And a lot of us are too hard on ourselves, especially as women, because we don't realize how hard our goals actually are, right? That they're not just achievable. No, you don't just walk on the street and every Tom, Dick and Harry has 6 figures or a house deposit sitting in their bank account. So you trying to get to that place is actually incredibly hard. When you look at the statistics of people who come from where you've come from, you've probably outshone all of the things that were probably laying ahead of you already. You're probably ahead of the curve, but you're being incredibly hard on yourself because you've lost touch with the reality of the situation. And it doesn't mean it has to become your reality, but it is the reality around you. And so it lets you know that the battle ahead of you actually is not an easy one. There are some hurdles, there are some systemic problems, there are things that genuinely need to be overcome, whether it be mindsets, whether it be limitations. And all of that, like you even said in the previous point, actually takes a lot of time. So it's okay to contextualize things so that you know what you're up against, and you know sometimes to take it easy. Take it easy on yourself. And I think a lot of it is rooted in comparison. A lot of it is rooted in looking side to side and kind of thinking, what's everyone else doing? And I'm not keeping up. But within your context, are you actually keeping up and in line with the timeline you set for yourself? Probably you are.
I love that. It's so necessary to contextualize what you're going through,
absolutely,
or what you're striving for, because we are so often exposed to the exceptional. And I get it, nobody wants to be average, but it's actually okay to be average. Like, it's genuinely fine to be average. And with that exceptionalism comes so much pressure. Looking at some of those stats, I think we would all do well to have a look and see, okay, where am I in comparison to everybody else? Genuinely, and not just off of like social media or like what I'm consuming, but genuinely having a look at some of the data metrics around my cohort of people. You would be startled to find that some of the statistics, child, around finances, around relationships, around even having kids, like some of the pressures that we normally put ourselves under as women specifically, it's funny because all of the data is showing a downtrend for everybody. And like you said, it's not necessarily about striving to be at that downtrend, but it's just about contextualizing that, you know, actually I'm doing better than I thought I was. Which is a beautiful thing. I think the next one that came up for me, just thinking about it, is understanding the root of your insecurities. So where do they actually come from? And I think one thing about self-awareness is it's not just the importance of progression. I think sometimes we look at self-awareness as just purely being fuel for progression. But I think sometimes it's really important for you to sit with your insecurities or sit with the things that are preventing you from moving forward and naming them and identifying them.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think it can be really, really upsetting and quite embarrassing. There's a bit of shame attached to naming your dysfunctions. But I think it's necessary for you to name the dysfunction, because once you have diagnosed it, you can treat it. So I've currently been watching the series of Dr. House, which basically the doctor, for those that are not familiar, but it's basically a series very comparable to like your Grey's Anatomy or whatnot. And you've got this hotshot doctor called Dr. House, who is all about diagnosing the patient in order to come up with the treatment. And I think there's so many of us that are trying to treat things that we haven't diagnosed. So your capacity to diagnose the issues that you're facing or the insecurities that you have will then dictate the treatment, right? So if it is that I have low self-esteem, understanding where does this come from? Does this come from, you know, my experience with my caregiver? Does it come from some of the trauma that I may have experienced because I was bullied when I was younger? Does it come from any kind of experience that I may have had that has resulted in this trauma? Once you've been able to name it and identify it and diagnose it, then you can come up with a treatment plan. And there's no point in skipping to a treatment plan if you don't know what's actually causing the issue. And then it also means that you can come up with a long-term treatment plan as opposed to something that's cosmetic, right? So it's all well and good to treat a cut with a plaster and just put a plaster on it and keep moving forward. But if you didn't know that the cut was infected, then putting the plaster will only be good for so long. You may be able to, you know, keep the blood from flowing out. You may be able to, you know, stop it from irritating you, but the pain will still be there. And the infection will actually continue and probably cause more harm than good. So making sure that your treatment plan or what you are deciding to be able to effectively treat whatever it is that you're dealing with is actually a long-term solution, as opposed to something that's quite short-term or something cosmetic or something that you've seen on Instagram or whatever, is super, super important. And it's beautiful that we have started normalizing talking about psychology, talking about therapy. Therapy speak has really pervaded so many of the spaces that we are in, both in person but also online. But not making it trivial is really important. The deep insecurities or the deep issues that you may have faced are not things to be trivialized. They're actually quite weighty things that you have to deal with. And even in conversations with you, like being able to admit, wow, I've actually had some self-esteem issues around particular experiences. I may have like a lack of confidence in this particular area. And just being able to say, yeah, I feel like I have low self-esteem right now, or this thing kind of makes me feel a bit insecure, is really, really important. And funnily enough, that can be so, so empowering. I know we often think about it in reference to addictions and the importance that, you know, the first step being aware of the issue, right? But I think even when it comes to insecurities, being aware of the issue, because it will play out in so many of your interactions.
Absolutely.
If you are insecure about your body, it will play out in the interactions that you have with people when it's time to go outside or hang out with your friends. All of a sudden, your body language is showing, I'm not comfortable with myself. Or you may have an insecurity around your finances. And if you haven't reckoned with the fact that, hey, Omo, I don't have money for this thing right now, then it's going to make itself manifest in the way that, again, you interact with your friends or your family. And you're kind of, you may be one of those people that are like, rah, I don't have money, but I'm going to pretend I'm going to flex. And now you're broke. Omo, you put yourself there because you're now spending so much money. One thing that I've always appreciated on this podcast, but also in our friendship and the people that we have around us, is you cut your cloth according to your size.
Facts.
And sometimes your size is really small, and that's okay. But when you enable it to turn into an insecurity, and then now something that you haven't identified but is now guiding you or determining the way that you interact with people, that's when it becomes dangerous.
Absolutely.
So really actually sitting with yourself, understanding what is the root of my insecurity? Why am I behaving this way? Why do I feel triggered about certain things? And also, why do I continue to feel triggered about certain things long after it has happened? Again, it's about that long-term treatment plan. Trauma is not just acute. Trauma can be chronic as well. And that means that you need a long-term treatment plan to be able to effectively treat it. And I think just thinking back to what we have been saying around like timelines and comparison and whatnot, it will take you time. Like, it's actually okay for it to take you time. And if you are insecure about whatever it is, whether it is your body, your finances, where you are at in life, your career, sometimes it will take some time for you to overcome that insecurity. But now that you're actually aware of it, that's how you can treat it. And also coming up with a long-term treatment plan that actually adequately addresses the situation, but also empowers you to be able to continue to do work after it, or continue to actually just operate in society and in your relationships, because that is the goal, effectively, for you to be somebody that can show up in all of these experiences, show up in your life, show up for other people, show up for yourself. And that is what oftentimes insecurities rob us of, the capacity for us to show up, not just for other people, but actually to show up for ourselves. So making sure that you are adequately targeting your insecurities, naming your insecurities, and making sure that you are approaching this from seeing it as something that's chronic that needs to be dealt with rather than acute and something that can go away. And listen, there are some people that they've been through stuff and they can, in one day, they've overcome it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's beautiful. And it's definitely something that we've even seen within our faith, right? The miracles that happen in a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatnot. But your capacity to overcome your trauma, just because it doesn't happen in a day or two, is no less miraculous. And I think the miracle of you being able to even have the strength to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, I think that's even more of a miracle in some instances than feeling like you have to have been healed of a variety of issues and trauma within 2 or 3 days. So yeah, that's what I would say around insecurities.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I love that you actually brought up House, because it's one of my favorite series. Funny enough, yesterday. Funny enough, yesterday I was thinking, I really want to rewatch House. I just need to find it. But anyways, I think one thing that's amazing about what they show, even around dealing with some of the sicknesses and the illnesses that are present, is they're not afraid to try a treatment. Even if it doesn't work. Actually, a lot of their treatments that don't work are seen as like a great cue for, okay, so it's not this. And I think going about kind of dealing with your insecurity by being like, okay, this is maybe what instinctively I know to do to deal with this problem or to deal with this feeling. Let me do it and actually assess whether it works and what it may flare up in me, actually, because then it can help me to get even deeper and closer to the right diagnosis and deeper to the root cause of this problem. If my go-to when I'm feeling a little bit sad or when I'm feeling a little bit anxious is to spend time with my friends, let me actually go and spend time with my friends. Now, whilst I'm spending time with my friends, do I feel like this is actually helping me? Or as I've entered into this space, has it actually even more increased my anxiety, even though it's meant to work? And if it is that I have a negative response to something that used to be a positive stimuli, I actually need to now assess there's something different that's going on here than usual. This may not be tiredness. This may now actually be anxiety. This may not be normal fatigue. This may be burnout. Like, let me actually go deeper into what is a normal sleep helping me deal with this tiredness. If not, then I'm probably erring more towards burnout. So I think also using your solutions to teach you whether there's actually something worse at hand can be a good like starting point as well, if you don't know how to approach it. And if it's like uncharted territory, like I've never been in this position before. So yeah, I just wanted to, that came to mind as you were speaking. I think my next thing is reclaim your attention. I think when we live in a time where there's just always something competing for your attention, whether it's things within your own life and your actual responsibilities, don't get it twisted, or things that actually you shouldn't pay any mind to. Like it's even this TMS hot takes, this week in TMS hot takes, we're talking about like gossip and how that's even a thriving industry, mukbangs and all of these like things where you're like, you can spend endless time just scrolling and giving your attention to things which are actually very unhelpful. But even on the more like extreme side, can actually be depositing a whole bunch of insecurities and fear and anxiety in you because of what they are projecting and what the spirit is around them. I was at a conference, I was speaking at a conference actually at Liberty Church a couple months ago, and Ron Starling was there, and he's the head of socials, or he used to be the head of socials at Transformation Church. And he was talking about how you need to have an understanding that the spirit with which you do things with will transfer into the content, and that's what will be received by the person watching. So for example, if you watch the video and you can just tell that the creator is like so positive, so energetic, so joyful, like if you're watching Tabitha Brown, 100%, you just know that what you're receiving from that video is the same thing that she's put into it. And I think it works on the flip side, on the more negative side, which is if this creator is filled with anxiety or filled with suspicion or filled with fear or is filled with anger, that's also going to translate into me. And it could be positive within the context, but it may also be negative within the wider picture of my life. And I think that's why you need to be careful with what you give your attention to, because there is an energy transfer there. There is a spirit transfer of like, oh, I've spent all this time scrolling on social media, but now that I've left, how do I feel? Am I actually, is this actually the root of my insecurity? Like every time I've gone through a binge on TikTok or a binge on, I think Instagram is the worst for it, but like I've gone through scrolling on Instagram, and although I've, my fire emojis and I've replied to all the stories and stuff.
And you're there, girl.
Whilst you're putting this fire in the background or afterwards, and it may not even be a conscious thought, but afterwards, I actually feel quite depleted. Or I feel quite low. Or I feel quite like, damn, what am I doing in my life? Or when is my picture going to be on Bella Niger? Or when is, why did it?
Bella Niger has been causing commotion,
Or like, when are people going to be celebrating me? And when am I going to have something to post worth celebrating? Like, it's all of these unconscious, subconscious fears that can come through our hearts and through our minds after we spent a lot of time giving these things our attention. And so I think it's worth kind of assessing, where am I depositing my attention? What am I giving my energy and my time and my consumption to? Because it will bear fruit in my life. And it's something we say continuously on this podcast, which is, you are what you eat, or you produce what you consume. And if what you're consuming is telling your brain, depending on what season you're in, like you don't react to content the same in every season.
Not at all.
There are seasons, and I came across a TikTok recently actually of a girl saying this: be careful what you watch when you're in a season of transition, because it's easy to start feeling like you need to be going faster than you need to, or you need to make a drastic choice than you actually need to make, because things communicate to your insecurity. They communicate to the things that are actually lying dormant within you. And I think the more we become self-aware, the better we can realize, this is not the season for me to be waking up and the first thing I do is go to IG, because I'm in a sensitive place. It's okay to know your sensitivities in your season, because it won't always be the same. 100%. In a season where your life is moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour, you're probably not going to be on your phone that much. And even when you are, you're not going to be hit bad by anyone posting anything positive or negative. But in a season where maybe you've just been made redundant and you don't know what your next job's going to be, this is not the time to be spending 3 hours a day on Instagram, even though time permits it, because you're going to be seeing people's career wins. You're going to be going on LinkedIn and I'm honored to announce. And now suddenly you're triggered to your core. But what business did you have being here?
That I'm honored to announce. And people are watching thinking dishonor.
Do you get what I mean? This is dishonoring me.
This is dishonor.
But why were you here?
Bro.
Like, why were you here in a time of sensitivity? You can't, when you're going through certain seasons and you know your triggers, or you know what your fears are. There are some places you can't go because you're not equipped for it. You're tender in that place. You're not fit to fight off every thought of comparison that could come to your mind and your heart. So you have to reclaim your attention and really assess, where is the best place for me to be depositing these things right now? Maybe this is a season of, let me shut down my socials and let me pick up some books, or let me be watching YouTube videos instead, or wherever I'm less triggered, but social media is a really, really slippery slope when it comes to our attention, because it constantly demands more of it, and it literally is designed to capture more of it. It's the pings, it's the notification, it's the little vibrations, it's the pop-up notification, and this telling you this person just like this, or this person just posted and they haven't posted in a while, or this person is live right now, and there's now all these different things literally pulling you to engage, when maybe you need to disengage, and you need to actually take a step back and be like, I need to reconnect with myself and what God is trying to do in my life right now, so I need to reclaim my attention.
I love that so much. The way that social media speaks to your insecurities, literally, it's like the Pied Piper just playing one tune specifically for you. And I think it's so insidious. Obviously, people want to make money from social media, but it's so insidious how the algorithm, people think that it's all about what you watch and the things that you enjoy. But really and truly, this is a fine-tuned instrument to speak to every insecurity you could possibly have.
Absolutely.
And you think that you are doing a big one by like, I'm changing my algorithm to things that I want to see, etc. And that's true to an extent. But boy, the internet knows what you're really into.
And it's also that your algorithm may be speaking to the last season you were in, but you're not in that season anymore. The algorithm doesn't know that.
And that's okay.
You might have been in a really flourishing relationship. Suddenly you're saving all the engagement rings, saving all the wedding dresses. But the algorithm doesn't know that last weekend he broke up with you.
Bro.
And it's still feeding you that stuff. So it's not even like now you're seeing it's my situation has changed.
Can you imagine? Now you're seeing, the hotels with the flower arrangements.
Honeymoon, and you're getting all the ads that are like, hey,
block
for your special day. And it's like,
that's crazy.
Damn, because the algorithm hasn't caught up with your season
100%.
change, and so you being aware of your season change will teach you take a step back.
You gotta
take a step back for now. Yeah.
Nobody above blocking. And also, sorry, just an extension of that as well. Like, sometimes you also need to reclaim your attention from things in real life too.
Absolutely.
So or maybe in the last season you could be outside. You could be outside with all of your mates. And this is not to say that, sometimes we can be super suspicious and oh God, remove people from my life that ought not to be there. And then all of a sudden you're reticent and you're not like hanging out with people. It's less so that, but it's more so understanding, okay, cool. If I do have particular goals or if there's certain things in this particular season that I need to prepare for, I may not have as much energy or I may not have as much capacity to be as free as I was in this particular area as I was in the last season. So it may look like, okay, cool. Last season, listen, guys, I've really been dealing with this one, Sha. Last season, I could do all of the coffee catch-ups. I could do all of the hangouts. I could do all of the being outside with my mates. Summertime, springtime, it's warm, etc. But stepping into a season where I know I need to prepare myself very well for, it's completely different. It's like, oh, okay. A Zoom call with coffee is also nice. Like, I love you dearly, but just for this short period of time, I also need to withdraw parts of myself so I can focus just for a sustained period of time on this goal that I'm trying to achieve, and not despising the fact that it's hideaway time. And I love the point really that you were making. Like, listen, it's hideaway time. It's actually okay. Do you know what I mean? A butterfly isn't a butterfly all the time. It was a caterpillar beforehand. And being in that cocoon for a season is actually okay. Do it in real life too.
Do it in real life. And the hope is that you'll have a supportive community around you who can also transition with you through different seasons. Like I currently have a lot of different seasons happening around me. My friends are in different seasons of life. Some are, preparing to give birth. Some are mourning miscarriage. Some are getting married. Some are getting divorced. Some are just got the dream job of my life. Some I just got made redundant and I actually got sacked, right? So many different seasons around you. And as a friend, it's also important for you to then adjust yourself to support differently and show up differently for your friends' seasons, but also accept that your friends are going to show up differently in different seasons that are happening through their life. The 5-hour FaceTimes are now no more, This person now has a job. Season has changed. You know what I mean? Or this person now has a child. They ain't coming out to the girls' trip anymore. Or at least for now. And so it's just embracing, my friend's season has shifted, which means the friendship may look different. But how do we still cultivate intimacy in an alternative way? So like you were saying, it's gone from let's go to Starbucks to Zoom. Here's a link. Here is a link. Okay.
I think that's okay because we can still drink coffee whilst
exactly
whilst we're there Zooming. It's just more practical.
It's just more practical for all of us, and it means that we can still do this whole friendship thing.
There you go.
And so just embracing that. So seasons come, seasons go. But the love remains the same.
The love remains, and it's heavy on the love remaining the same.
Facts.
But one thing that occurred to me, especially speaking to fear of the future, because I ain't gonna lie to you guys, that's something that I deal with because I am a recovering perfectionist. And as somebody that finds it tricky to relinquish control, fear of the future is a real thing because you can make all of your plans, and if it doesn't happen, you'll be underneath your bed crawled in a circle or in the fetal position, wondering what the hell is going on. I think two things to that. The first thing is standing on the receipts that you actually have. I think it's so easy for us to discount what has happened in our past because we're so focused on the future, or discount how beautiful it is that you are in your present season, and actually exercising gratitude. The fact that you are alive right now, the fact that you have a roof over your head, the fact that you've achieved so much, like there are real receipts of you doing what you said that you would do, real receipts and real opportunities for you to look back and say, okay, what I've done in the past can actually power the future as well. So even if things don't work out, I do actually have evidence that you know what, I am that girl, and I've done something like this before, or I've done cool stuff before, and it can happen again. But I think even superseding that, really standing on the promises of God, like really standing on the promises of God, because even with the receipts, I think having those receipts are important, but I think there's something beautiful, and we talk about it all the time, right? There's something beautiful to be able to stand on something outside of yourself, because you are going to fail at some point. You will, there will be a day you don't want to wake up. I've had many days, and I know that a lot of people often look at me as somebody that's relatively consistent or somebody that is disciplined, but I too have those days that I wake up and I'm like, not today. I don't want to do this today, or I just don't feel motivated to be that girl or whatnot. And having to hype myself up or get back into that place where I am motivated requires me to stand on something outside of myself. Because if I stand on myself, child, nothing is happening, or nothing is going to, you know, materialize into the ethosphere. So actually being acquainted with the promises of God, understanding that there is something that is higher than you, understanding that your purpose is outside of yourself. And I think that's oftentimes where we go wrong with thinking about the future and thinking about our present. It's that our purpose is often to do with us. It's all about me. It's like, what can I do? What can I bring to the table? What can I achieve? When really purpose, obviously we're Christians, so Omar, you can decide how purpose manifests in your life or what your definition of a purposeful life is. But when you do zoom out, when you do have the opportunity to really look at your life as a vessel, or like as an opportunity to bring good things to other people or really glorify God, you realize that whilst you are important, there's a bigger picture here.
Absolutely.
And being able to color that bigger picture, to bring the details to it, to bring the understanding to it, will give you genuinely a supernatural sense of motivation to be able to carry out that which you thought that you could not do.
But also peace.
And peace
around the
knowing that it also doesn't necessarily depend on you, right? As long as you are obedient, as long as you are listening to those promptings, as long as you are really acquainting yourself with those promises, jail safe, man. You know what I'm saying? It's get out of jail card, baby. Like, this ain't about me. This is bigger than me. And having things that in your life that are a testament to the bigness of God and not the bigness of you. So I can look at my life and say, yeah, Renee's cool, Renee's disciplined, Renee's like motivated, but there are receipts in my life that show that I also serve a big God, or there are receipts in my life that show that the purpose that I have for myself is inexplicably bound to my belief that there is more than me. There is so much more than me. So me being it doesn't necessarily depend on me, but it is filtered through me and it is done through me. And that gives me so much, as you were saying, peace, knowing that I'm good. Like I will be covered irrespective of what happens. And it also prepares you for the bad times. Because I think sometimes we can be so focused on, these are the things that I want to achieve, that we're actually not prepared to deal with the bad times. And this is not me saying that you should be fearful and anticipate the bad times, because oftentimes when you put so much energy towards fear, the fear manifests. But it's more so having a sober mind and a developed character to know that this won't be easy, but I have the tools and I have the mindset and I have the relationship with God to know that if there's anything that comes my way that prevents me or maybe a blocker to me, I will overcome. Not even I can, not even I could, it is I will overcome. Like signed, sealed and delivered. Facts. Like it's actually been told to me already. The promise is that you have overcome, right? So I think being able to stand on that promise, being able to believe in that promise, and also being able to remind yourself of that promise, especially when the fear of the future becomes so emergent. And I think it also ties to what we were saying around comparison, right? Sometimes the fear of the future is driven by comparison. Maybe I should be a little bit further down the line. Maybe I don't have the resources that I'm seeing everybody else has to be able to make this happen for myself. But I think very much believing that if the promises are not about you necessarily and what you can provide, but you're standing on the provision of somebody else or something else, then it's less so about you and it's more so about your obedience. It's more so about you actually bowing to that, and it's more so about you having the peace and tranquility to be able to carry that out in the first place. Because bro, if there's one thing that fear does to us, especially as women, it really does paralyze you. You actually don't make the steps that you need to make in order to make your future a reality anyways. It's such a massive distraction to be fearful, constantly thinking about the future and what could happen, or oh my goodness, like this won't come to pass. If you're there thinking that it won't come to pass, I promise you it will not. I promise you it will not. And we posted something on the TMS socials a while about this, right? Like, you can either choose to believe in faith or fear. You can either allow your life to be governed by your faith or governed by your fear. Both of them will enable you to arrive at a destination. The question is, which destination do you want to see happen? I don't know about you guys. I'm choosing faith. I'm choosing faith.
Same. Absolutely. And I think, lastly, even off the back of that, allowing your fears to at least prompt what you need to pray about and what you need support in as well. I think embracing those kind of emotions allow you to actually welcome in your community and really go into that toolbox that you have of how do I deal with the more negative, more ugly side of me, which are my anxieties, my fears, my worries, my confronting the inadequacies I perceive that I have, quote unquote. What do I go to and how can I let other people in to alleviate me of these things? So I think it's your fears indicate to you what you need to be penning down in your journal and what you need to be praying about, and also what you need to be confessing to people as well, who can speak that life into you and who can remind you of who God is, who you are, your track record and what's gone on around you so far, and also help you to diffuse those thoughts that are going off in your mind as well. So seeing your fears as an invitation for people to come into your life as well, as challenging as it may be to actually be vulnerable and to confess the thoughts that you may be having or the fears. And as much as it may feel, like you said, embarrassing or maybe shrouded in a lot of shame, it's okay to actually make these things a confession to other people and allow them to pray for you and allow them to have the strength which you may not have, or the perspective you may not have in that season as well. So I think it can be the ushering in of a new season within your relationships as well, allowing your fears not to make you closed off, but actually to make you more open. So yeah, our prayer for you is, as you navigate through whatever season of life you're in right now, whether you perceive it as good or bad, that as you get through it, you'll learn so much more about yourself, learn more about God, learn more about relationships and friendships, and hopefully all of these things will become better and stronger and leave you all the more blessed for it. On the other end of it. Sisters, we absolutely love and adore you. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and if you have, please share it with somebody. Shoot somebody the link, shoot somebody, something that, a clip, if you see it on socials, engage with it. Shoot it to someone who you think would really benefit from listening to it. It's always a lovely gift to send a friend a cheeky podcast they can listen to you on their walk. And follow us on socials as well at To My Sisterhood. We post a different kind of content over there, so you may enjoy it, you may get a few giggles, you may also get to connect with some sisters in the comments who drop their own wisdom as well. So follow us at To My Sisterhood on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, on Threads, literally everywhere. We are there, okay? And you can also follow us individually. Yeah, you can also follow us individually. Why not? You can follow my lovely best friend at Renee Kapuku. You can follow me at CD Boating.
And if that's just not enough for you, if you truly want to be showered with love and affection, a little bit of that platonic investment, then we suggest that you sign up to the mailing list, www.tomysisters.com, for your weekly glowing and growing tips, as well as a love letter from us, literally every week, encouraging you. So if you need further affirmation for your week ahead, then sign up to the mailing list.
Absolutely. We hope that you have a beautiful rest of your week. We'll talk to you very, very soon, and we may be coming back with a cheeky guest. Ooh. Can you guess who it might be? Well, hanging tight. As always, keep glowing and growing.